Well, good one from a very damp and soggy Dudley. I've just stepped from under the tree that I've been sheltering under because I've walked here. It's only about a mile away from where I live, and I haven't got a coat on. And I suddenly realised I should have gone to the loo before I came out. So not a good combination, being cold, wet and needing a wee, but never mind. It's a good job I'll have done, isn't it? So as you can see, I'm here at Duncan's final resting place for my final part of the walking tour. It's Father's Day, of course, and there's lots of people here leaving flowers and things for their dad, so I'm a little bit cautious and trying to be discreet while they're paying their respects to their beloved dads. The rain is coming down again now, so as it is Father's Day, I do want to mention my own dad. We lost my dad at the end of January, so it's our first Father's Day without him. Still incomprehensible that that man isn't here anymore, and I don't see his face anymore, but I'm thinking of him, of course, and he's very much missed. I also want to mention David, who was my first husband and the father of my boys, who passed away when they were little. He's very much missed and has two wonderful grandchildren that he would absolutely adore, so he's very much in our thoughts as well. And to Andy Monk, Mr. M, my other half, who's a fabulous stepdad to my boys. I'm just going to move because the car's coming. So I just wanted to mention Andy as well, because he is a wonderful stepdad to my boys, and to two very, very special fathers. My darling eldest son Daniel, who's a wonderful daddy to our gorgeous Jessica, and to Adam, my other gorgeous boy, who is a wonderful daddy to William. A couple of shout outs for Father's Day before we walk round to where Duncan is resting is to Joseph Keenan, who is the father of our great supporter Adrian, both lifelong supporters of Duncan Edwards. So happy Father's Day to lovely Joseph. And to Ray Hill as well, who's the dad of a really old friend of mine, David Hill. So happy Heavenly Father's Day to Ray as well. And I'm also very much thinking about Harry Gregg's family, because it's their first Father's Day without lovely Harry. And of course to our wonderful trustee and board member Marina Parry, it's her first Father's Day without her lovely dad as well, and it is a really difficult day, but we are here, and there's lots of people expressing their love. You know, when people say, oh, I don't want to go into the churchyard because it's spooky, I never look at it that way. I just think, look at all this love that there's been, and I wonder what these people have done with their lives, and who they've loved and who they've fallen out with and what they did. So I think it's quite a lovely place to come, actually. Not a father yet, but I'm holding out for him and Meg to make me a grandmother again, is my son Matt. And I really do have to mention him, because he's been great while I've been doing all this, but then Matt's great in whatever I do, and he's always really supportive and asks what he can do. And even down to the Steve Dunno shirt that I showed you yesterday, when I said I was going to get it framed, he immediately said, I'll pay for that, Mum. And he did that through his company, Black Country Cleaners. So it's a big shout out to him, because he is a great supporter of what I do and always has been. And I don't want to miss him out, because he's wonderful. So, as I say, we are at Queen's Cross Cemetery. And if I can just span and show you where we are. On the 26th of February in 1958, the day of Duncan's funeral, this place was full of people that had come to pay their respects to Duncan. You couldn't get in. There was people on this side of the cemetery, and those gates just there is the junction of Clee, Tanfield, Markhead Road, and you couldn't get in there. That's where the cars would have come in. And way up that where you can see the estate house, if you like, is the main road, the main Stourbridge Road, and you couldn't get in there either. So this was full of people that wanted to come and say goodbye to Duncan. And all this ground that I'm going to walk up while I'm talking to you was full of flowers and reeds as well. When I come, I try to envisage what it must have been like, and you can't really. But it was really, really sad time, of course. So before we walk up the hill to where Duncan is resting, I'm just going to show you these graves here, because these are some war graves which are looked after by the War Commission, and there's always flowers on there, and it's always really well kept. And those are our local men who died at war that have been brought home, and they were reburied here. Some of them were at St Thomas's and some were at St James's, two names that I've mentioned this week, but then they were brought here. So we're now going to walk up the hill to where Duncan is resting, and I don't want to end by saying thank you to everybody, because I don't think that would be very appropriate, but I do want to thank you all for your support and for your messages over the last few days while I've been doing this. It is an absolute passion of mine, as you've probably gathered, and that is down to an old lady called Sarah Ann, who was Duncan's mum. Because once upon a time Duncan was a name that I knew because my parents spoke of him, but I didn't really know his story. And a chance meeting with Sarah, and the reason why I ever walked through the cemetery that day is still a mystery to me, because I didn't need to come this way to get home, but I did, and I looked at Duncan's grave and wondered why after all this time he was being remembered. And that's how my story with Duncan Edwards started, and still don't know why, really, why he captivated me so much, but he did. And it started a lifelong love of Duncan and of the babes and of the Red family, who I'm so proud to be a part of. But it was his mum, Sarah Edwards, who she was just so lovely, you know, just a black country woman, no airs and graces about her, but who was mourning her son. And I miss her. She was absolutely lovely. She's buried up here too, so I'll let you say hello to Sarah in a minute. But before we say our final goodbyes to Duncan, I do want to mention something which I don't really try and get involved in things on Facebook that will cause any keyboard warriors to have a go, because I'm not the most patient person to put up with it, for one thing. But I do want to mention a young lad called Marcus Rashford, because I read a remark about him. I'm dithering, sorry if I sound like I'm out of breath, I'm freezing. Somebody made a remark about him in the week where, you know, he's got this school dinners for children over the summer holidays, and someone said, yeah, okay Marcus, just concentrate on what you're good at, lad. And I thought, hang on a minute, that's exactly what he's doing. He came from nothing, he had nothing when he was a kid. He relied on other people's love and you know, friendship, and now he's made something of his life. He did that, it wasn't handed to him on a plate, and he's not forgotten where he's come from. You know, there's no status to him, there's no looking down his nose at anybody because he's finally got money in his bank. He's remembered where he's come from, and he remembered the people that helped him. So actually, he is doing what he's good at. He's good at being an honest, hard-working Christian person. So let's not knock him for doing what he's doing, because he's not doing it for anybody's benefit other than the kids that he's helping. And if that is the way forward that footballers are going to be, instead of saying, look what my wife's wearing, look who I've slept with, he's being honest and he's being true to his roots, and I say good on him. And there's no room for racism, and there's no room for judging somebody because of the colour of their skin. We are all born the same way, and unfortunately this is all we end up at. So we are all one, and the sooner we all recognise that, the better place this world will be. So enough the sermon, but I did want to give Marcus a shout out, because I think he's an exceptional young man, and good for him. But we're now at Sarah and Gladstone's grave, bless them. And I never met Gladstone, and I did say the other day he doesn't really get enough love from people, because all that was directed at the grieving mother. But my goodness, didn't Gladstone grieve for his boy? In fact, he came and he tended the graves here, became the caretaker and supervisor of the cemetery, because he just wanted to be near his son. So bless you, Gladstone. And this lovely, lovely lady called Sarah, she was just so lovely, and I do miss her, and I think of her a lot. Whenever I'm doing something, I always think, would Sarah like this? Would Sarah be proud? And I really hope that I have done her proud, because I did promise her that I would keep Duncan's name alive. She was a lovely, lovely lady. Bless you, Sarah. And I've got a lot to thank her for, because she shared such wonderful memories of Duncan. And in this square here, they're a bit, they're in need of some care, but his grandparents are here too. So they're all looking after him. And over the back, it's too wet for me to walk to, I'm sorry, is Stella Cook's grave, who was his favourite teacher. And Duncan was most definitely her star pupil. So he's buried under this tree, which has been quite cruelly cut down by the council. They must have had their reasons for doing that. It's dark. But here's our boy, Duncan, on his final resting place. The headstone was made in Aberdeen by a company called A. Walkers and Sons, and then it was brought down and it was inscribed with all the writing at R.L. Jones's, which is just across the main road there. And it was finally unveiled when Sir Matt was better. He came and unveiled it. And ever since, it is a shrine to people wanting to come and pay their respects to the golden boy of football, our Duncan. There's always flowers on here. There's only once that marble football has been stolen, but it was very quickly returned, and the person very quickly saw the error of their ways. But there's always scarves on here. I'm going to come in the week actually and take these scarves home and wash them, because the rain is they're sodden with the rain obviously, and they're a bit dirty, and we don't want that for Duncan. So I will come up in the week and take them home and wash them, but obviously I will bring them back again. So there's our boy Duncan, and the final part of our tribute to him. It is an absolute honour to be able to do this for him, and he does feel like he's the friend I've never met, but I always say I will one day, somewhere else. And there are, it's down to your own interpretation really of who is the greatest. Sir Bobby Charlton says that without doubt Duncan was the only person that ever made him feel inferior. You have people like Pele that says actually it was Duncan who was the greatest. And of course there'll be people who compared to him. George Best, Dennis Law, fantastic players. But you see, the thing is with Duncan is that he was only 21. He had so much potential. We didn't see what he was going to go on to achieve. And he was very strategic minded when it came to football. He wrote a book that if the footballers heeded to today, then the football would be a better game. It's a very different game, of course, now. That down to the boots they wear and the footballs they kick, it's all very different. And if you take all that into consideration, what Sir Bobby says, what Pele says, the boots they wore and the football they kicked, then yeah, I do think and I do believe that he was the greatest footballer, and he's from here, my hometown, and I'm really proud of him, and I'm proud of what our foundation does. I'm equally proud of the MMMF and the former players and Must and the Stretford Enders, and you know, the Big Lily and all those other great organisations that have got one thing in mind, and that's doing the right thing for people like Duncan and the babes who gave their all. So yeah, of course, there's people that's going to be compared, but the fact of the matter is, there's only ever going to be one Duncan Edwards. Thank you so much for joining me and for listening and for all the positive comments. And I will keep that promise to Sarah, and we will keep this young lad's name alive. Thank you.